You are listening to the Life Coach School podcast with Brooke Castillo, episode number 81.
Welcome to the Life Coach School podcast, where it's all about real clients, real problems, and real coaching. And now, your host, Master Coach Instructor, Brooke Castillo.
Hi. Oh my gosh. It's been one of those days, you guys. I usually don't have these days. What I mean by that is my brain is full of thoughts that I keep having to download. And as soon as I download them, there's a whole another array of them. So I just have had a lot going on. So here's the thing. I had a student who was upset with me, and I had my financial institution think that I was a scam person. So they had to turn off all access to my bank account. That was awesome. And then I had some crazy success with the launch of Stop Overeating Masterclass. I know you guys know that I was like so excited about that class. It's like one of my most favorite things that I've ever done, and I can't wait to do it. And then we had so many people interested in doing it and signing up for it, and then it got sold out, and then I opened up another class, and then that got sold out. And so I'm just like kind of overwhelmed with my excitement to accommodate the people that got into the class and really trying to make some options for the people who didn't. And for some reason, everything going on in my brain is kind of getting the best of me today. So, there's days like that. And I have to say, I was really looking forward. Here's the deal. I'm sitting in my office and all I see is trees. There's no one else in my office, but I was really excited to talk to y'all. I know that sounds weird because I'm really just recording this, but I know you'll listen to it. And I get so many amazing emails and comments on the podcast, and, just really wonderful things that I hear from you guys on those comments. And it just makes me feel so cared about and loved and listened to. So I'm like, I'm going to go talk to them all about this. So I laughed when I saw that my topic today is when something bad happens, because I've just had that kind of experience today. I just kind of feel like, okay, regroup, get the mind straight. My example is, I guess, having one of my students upset with me because of something that I did that I feel was the right decision, and I feel I stand by that decision, but it didn't prevent them from being upset. I would consider that, quote unquote, something bad happening. But here's what I realize is that the circumstance isn't that something bad happened, right? The fact of it is that she told me that she was upset about something. Now, what I make that mean and how I feel about that is going to determine everything. And so really taking the time to download my thoughts and think about that in a way that, I wish that I could control her feelings. I wish that she wasn't upset. I wish that I could fix it. I feel myself kind of being pulled into that people-pleasing mode, wanting to, what can I do to make it better? And yet also really feeling strongly about the decisions that I had made. And, bottom line is I totally love this person and, find it very difficult not to take responsibility for how they feel. And so that's kind of been like coming in the back of my mind. And I also, before that, was raging mad at somebody else. And really what that means is I just had a crazy rage of thoughts going on. And it was funny. I called my coach, which is a colleague who's also a coach, and called her and said, here I go, and just kind of spewed all of my thoughts and what was going on in my head and all of my anger. And it's so fascinating how I really rarely get angry. I rarely get to the point where I need to talk to someone about being angry. But I was definitely there. And it was so funny. I went on a walk and I was walking the dogs, and it's like my favorite thing to do. I love watching the puppies, and I love walking, and I love being outside. And I'm always like so excited when it's time to walk the puppies. And oftentimes I'll have other options of things to do to work out. And I'll be like, oh, I'll just walk the puppies instead. I just want to be with the puppies. So anyway, I'm walking the puppies and talking on the phone to my colleague, my coach, and just going off, right? Just letting my thought, just arguing and just rah, 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 letting all that anger come out. And I got to the end of the walk and got in the car, and it was the most amazing experience. I hadn't remembered any of the walk. I hadn't enjoyed it, of course. I had just been on the phone kind of just ranting, and my colleague had just really listened and kind of offered me some insight, but I wasn't really in a place to absorb it. And right before we got off the phone, I said, I just need to get some authority over this situation. I need to get some authority with this person. And one of the things she said to me, she just said, no, authority is a myth. You don't want to have authority. The only way you ever have authority over anything is fear, is if the person's afraid. And so you definitely don't want that. Okay. All right. Talk to you later. Bye. And I was sitting in my car going, wait, what? What do you mean? Like, oh, that's so fascinating. So I was done walking the dogs, but I had missed it. So I decided to go on another walk. I just literally drove the dogs to a new place, a new trail, and took them on another walk. And it was so funny, you guys, because I went around my loop that I usually do with the dogs, but I wasn't done walking. I was still having all these insights and all this self-awareness going on. And Rory, one of my dogs, was just sitting there at the trail like, all right already. Like, I'm done walking. And I was like, no, we got to keep going. I'm just getting to the point where I'm understanding this. And what really came up for me is I was really angry, and I know for me that I don't normally get angry. So I started coaching myself once I was able to kind of, get to the bottom of why is this making you so angry? What is going on? And of course, for me, what was at the bottom was fear, wanting to control this other person because I was so afraid of losing them and wanting to be able to have some authority over them so I could control whether they left me or not, which of course is so interesting because, the truth is that all I really need to do is get out of fear and anger, and I can have a conversation, and I can be much more effective, and I can be in a space that is much more creative and able to solve problems. And one of the things I kept telling to myself is, every problem has a solution, and people really are doing their best. And sometimes people's best is terrible. But here's what I know. Most people are well-intended, right? So even when they're making mistakes, they're usually well-intended. Most people don't do a bad job on purpose. Most people don't do a bad job because they're trying to upset you. Most people don't show up short of their best selves because they want to be that way. It's usually a misdirected attempt. And so that really helped me. And the truth is I wasn't at my best when I'm angry or afraid, especially because the thoughts that were causing that were all very illogical. So once I was able to really be in that space of compassion for myself and understanding where I was coming from, then of course all of the answers and the direction that I needed to go and what I needed to say and what needed to happen became very clear for me. And I love it when that happens. I love it when I give myself the space to figure out. And I give myself the space to process my anger. And I have someone that will hold the space for me to do that without judging me. Yeah, it was really kind of an amazing experience to go through that. And then I kind of landed on the other side of that in like a vulnerability place. I was feeling very vulnerable in terms of one of the things that happens when you really acknowledge that you're responsible for how you feel, and that, I felt exposed in terms of my fear of losing this person. And when I really acknowledged that, then I really went to that vulnerable place, and I was able to communicate from that place. And I felt tender when that happened. And then shortly after that, I was dealing with someone being very angry at me. So I was kind of like on the opposite end of that situation and in a very vulnerable spot. And one of the things that was really amazing for me to see is that I had so much more compassion when I was in that space of understanding what I had just gone through. But that didn't mean that I was weak, right? So I didn't go into that people pleasing, let me fix it, let me make it all better, let me change what is important to me so you can feel better. Like I didn't go to that place either. So it just, really reconfirms to me that the work that I'm doing in the world, the work that I'm doing on myself really matters and really is important. And sometimes it's messy and everybody doesn't always end up happy all of the time. And relationships aren't always easy and fun. I would like them to always be easy and fun. But if you stay present and you pay attention and you monitor and look at your own mind, there's always a way to find yourself back in compassion. And there's always a way to find a connection with another human being without attacking them or judging them, right? And I'm talking about like when you're speaking to them and when you're with them, because it's not useful. It disconnects and creates resistance. And so all in all, I'm feeling proud of the work that I've done, but I'm also feeling like I'm still kind of in the middle of it. I still have a lot of stuff going on in my brain. And so holy cow, that was my intro. Thanks for hanging there with me. I know that you guys can relate. Like sometimes I'm just driving along. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of anxiety that's coursing through my veins right now. Whew, I got some work to do. And then, I came into the office and I'm actually going to be moving offices, which is bittersweet, right? So I have this amazing office right now with these huge windows that looks out onto the park that's beautiful, but I need a bigger office. I need one with like a little video studio I'm going to have set up in here, and I'm going to have some really cool stuff tricked out in my new office. So I'm excited about that. We're over here growing, y'all. We're like little tiny business. It's getting its training wheels. It's super fun. So today I wanted to talk to you all about when something bad happens. And let me tell you that everything that I'm going to teach you in this podcast is what I have to remember and use in my own situations that I've been dealing with this week. But the reason why I was inspired to create this topic, and when I wrote my outline, what I had in my mind was one of my best girlfriends, her son was diagnosed with Lyme disease, and he was bit by a tick years ago, and they didn't think anything of it. And then he started having a lot of Lyme symptoms. And one of her very close friends has Lyme disease and was able to help her get her son diagnosed. It's usually one of the problems that goes, or issues that goes undiagnosed for years. And so we were spending the weekend in Tahoe together, and she's just really upset about her son having Lyme disease. And she wanted to talk to me about it, and she wanted me to help her with it. Now, she's one of those friends. She's super fun. Her father was a psychologist, so she doesn't want to have anything to do with psychology or coaching. So at one time she was wanting some help losing weight, and I was trying to offer her some emotional insight. And she was like, absolutely not. Stay away from me with all of that. Right. So when she wants help, she wants it, but I have to do it in a way that she doesn't realize that I'm coaching her. So she was asking me about how, she was supposed to help her son get through his Lyme disease, because he was really struggling with it and having some issues with it and some problems, as you can imagine, and was just really struggling to stay mentally positive. And of course, as I would do with anyone that I was speaking with, is I said, well, what about you? What's going on in your mind? What's going on with your attitude? And she's like, oh, no. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about his. And I said, well, the way you're looking at it and thinking about it, of course, will affect the way you parent him and the way you show up for him. And you can't really control the way he's thinking about it, but you can control the way you're thinking about it. And so this is true whether, you found out that someone's lied to you or cheated on you or hasn't followed through in a way that you wanted them to, or even if you've, discovered weight gain, or you've had a diagnosis of something, or, something unexpected happens that you would label as bad. The most important thing that you must remember is that all problems are in your mind. right? You have to own the problem, your mind. And my husband, many times I'll present something to him and I'll say, can you believe blah, 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 blah. And he'll be like, yeah, whatever. Like to him, it's no big deal. It's not a problem. I'm not really upset or concerned about what you're going through, that sort of thing. And I'll be like incensed about it. Like, can't you get on board with my drama on this? And he just won't. He just won't get involved. He just doesn't see the same thing as a problem. Now, if, the Giants lose a game, now we've got a problem, folks. 49ers miss a touchdown. We've got a problem, right? But if I have some kind of drama in my life, it's not a problem. So what that helps me do, though, when I speak to him, is it just shows me, wow, this isn't a problem for him. This is just a problem in my mind. And so you have to understand, what are you thinking about this that's making it a problem? It's only a problem when you start thinking about it. So what is it you're thinking about it that's making it a problem? So with my girlfriend, she needs to look at what are her thoughts about her son's Lyme disease and having it. And, what is she constantly thinking that is creating the emotion that she's feeling? Now, a lot of people will tell me that, well, I'm just thinking the truth. I'm just thinking what's real. I'm just acknowledging his diagnosis. But if you're thinking in a way that's causing you pain, it doesn't matter if it's true or if it's not true. It matters what you're choosing to focus on and what you're choosing to think about. True or not, is the thought serving you? Then you have to ask yourself the really hard question, which of course I asked her, is, okay, so your circumstances, your son has Lyme disease. How do you want to feel as you go through this with him? How do you want to feel as you deal with this? You get to decide. And what feeling do you think will best serve you as you go through this process, right? So, for example, if I'm dealing with one of my students being really upset with me, the reason that that's a problem for me is because of what I make it mean about me and what I make it mean about my relationship with her and, what I make it mean about me as a person. So you need to be really careful that you pay attention and make sure those thoughts are conscious. And then you need to ask yourself, how do you want to feel? And for me, I want to feel compassion and love and openness. I don't want to feel defensive and righteous and justified, right? I want to feel like I'm understanding and open without trying to feel. I want to be able to feel compassion, but I don't want to feel responsible for how someone else is feeling. So that's really important for me to ask that question. Another really good question is, who do you want to be as you go through this? And that's what I asked my girlfriend. I said, who do you want to be as a mother? Who do you want to be as a woman? Who do you want to be as, kind of the caretaker of your child and his diagnosis? Who do you want to be through that process? Do you want to be upset and worried and wringing your hands and frustrated and scared, feeling like a victim and really trying to hold in all the fear that you're experiencing when it comes to your child? Or do you want to be someone that acknowledges how she feels in terms of the worry and fear, but then also does the work to go to the place where you can be determined and positive and hopeful? And it was really interesting for us to kind of have that conversation. I explained to her, I said, you're arguing with reality. That was one of the things that I had learned from Byron Katie, is that when you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. Right? So if you're arguing with the reality of a diagnosis and you think something's gone terribly wrong and this shouldn't have happened to us and this shouldn't be happening to him, there really is no upside to that, right? There really is no place to be in that space, right? Where you can be creative and wise because you're trying to win a battle that's unwinnable, which creates a lot of resistance. And so just notice if you're in an argument that you cannot win. If you're arguing with something like, my son shouldn't have gotten Lyme disease, or this person shouldn't be upset with me, or this person should change how they feel, right? That person feels the way they do. Your son has Lyme disease. Arguing with it is not helping anything. It's certainly creating more tension and resistance than is necessary. Notice if you are in a space of desperation in an attempt to fix something. This is where you get into trouble. For me, this is where I get into people pleasing and self-sacrificing and trying to make things better at my own expense. And, notice that if you're, like with my girlfriend, her just trying to fix it, trying to make it better, in desperation, coming from that place of desperation and hopelessness, right? And stabbing in the dark, trying to fix. Now, the reason we want to fix it is because we don't want to feel what we're feeling. We don't want to feel that resistance. We don't want to feel disappointed. We don't want to feel scared. Right. And so we are trying to fix that external world to change how we feel. And what we can do instead is just notice the thoughts we are having that are creating the emotions that we're having. Most of the time when we are feeling that way, it's because we're identifying ourselves as a victim, right? So we're seeing this happened to me, poor me, and we're usually blaming some kind of perpetrator, right? This big bad thing that's happening, or this big bad person, right? We make them into the villain and us into the victim. We do that with circumstances and we do that with people. And I think when I was feeling really angry, I think I was feeling like a victim. I was like feeling sorry for myself. And I think that really that's what was causing all that fear and that worry about abandonment, when really I was I could have been in that space of pure empowerment, but because my thoughts had kind of gone off the rails, I needed to regroup to get back to it. Here's the power in this, you guys. When you can look at a circumstance outside of yourself and see that that circumstance is neutral, like really see it, like your son having Lyme disease in and of itself isn't bad, isn't good, isn't anything. It's just neutral. It's what you make it mean, right? It's what he makes it mean that will determine ultimately what the experience is of it. And I know for some people, they're like, well, that's not a very compassionate way of looking at it. And I think the opposite is true. I think when you can feel empowered by what you do have control over, that's where you make the biggest difference in your life. I can't control that my student is upset with me, but I can control how I respond and how I feel and how I show up, right, in that situation. And that is really helpful because I can't control this other person and I can't change that, just like my friend can't change that her son has Lyme disease. And that can leave us feeling very disempowered and out of control. But when we do focus on what we can control, that puts us back in that driver's seat. One of the thoughts that I've shared with you all before that's really powerful for me to remember is what's meant to happen does. It was always going to happen this way, right? And I tried to share that with my girlfriend and say, if you knew that it was always going to be this way, you think something's gone terribly wrong. And the reason why you think something's gone terribly wrong is because you had this vision of how it was supposed to be. But what if you could just go to this place? Like, what if it was always going to go down this way? Like there was nothing went wrong. And as Byron Katie would say, this is just the way of it. How would you approach it differently? How would you show up differently if you knew that this is how it was always going to be? It was always meant to happen that way. And so one of the examples I like to use sometimes is this one time I went ziplining. In fact, I took my master coaches and we all went ziplining. And I was standing literally on the top of a redwood tree and it was moving and I was flipping out and feeling very anxious and very vulnerable and kind of upset. And one of the other master coaches was upset too, but she was funny. She was just crying, but she's like, oh no, I'm fine. I'm just crying. And I think what was happening is the tree was moving and the zip line was moving. And I kept thinking that something was going wrong and that we were all going to die. And the guy that was working there was like, no, this is how it's supposed to be. The tree does move and the zip line does shake like that. That's what's supposed to be happening. Nothing's gone wrong here. Everything's safe. This is how it's supposed to be. This is how it always is. And I remember having this moment oh, this is how it's supposed to be. This is how it always is in life. There's always that unexpected, quote unquote, bad thing that happens. And we always resist it, right? Oh, I don't want anyone to be upset with me. Oh, I don't want to be mad at anybody else. Oh, I don't want any kind of diagnosis, right? I don't want anything to happen like this. But wait a minute. We didn't come to the planet for Easy Street. I know that for sure. Like, there's a whole lot of obstacles that we're going to run into. And those obstacles are part of the deal. They're supposed to happen, right? They're part of the process. So when I'm faced with these challenges, when I remind myself, oh, it was always going to be this way, right? Then I get right out of regret. I get right out of resentment. I get right into the present moment. This is supposed to be happening, right? This is this moment that I'm supposed to be experiencing. And when I drop into it like that, even if it's quote unquote a bad thing, then I can find so much more creativity, compassion, and wisdom in that moment. Okay. This is normal. Another time I went to watch one of my girlfriend's sons play lacrosse, and my sons have always played soccer. So we went to this lacrosse game, and they literally have weapons in their hand, and they're like hitting each other with these sticks. And I'm alarmed. I'm like, what is going on? Why are they hitting each other with sticks? This doesn't seem right at all. And everybody else is like, oh no, this is normal. This is okay. This is no problem. Right? So from my perspective, nobody should be hitting someone else with a stick like that. And in their perspective, oh no, this is normal. This is happening. This is part of the deal. Yes, it hurts when you get hit with a stick, but it's part of the game. It's part of the game of lacrosse, right? And even though I'm like, why would anyone want to play a game where there'd be sticks that would be in your face, right? It's part of the deal. They know going in that there's a high chance that they're going to get hit with a stick. Right? And that's kind of how our life is too, right? There's a high chance that you're all going to get hit with a stick in the face. It's part of the deal. And if every time we get hit in the face with the stick, we think something's gone terribly wrong and we're very dramatic about it and we're very upset about it, then we're going to end up in a different place than if we're like, oh yeah, I got hit with a stick today, And even just thinking about this right now, I'm thinking about my day, kind of when I started this podcast, I was like, hi, everybody, I need a hug. Right. But even now, as I'm talking about this, I'm like reminding myself, oh yeah, I think like sometimes I don't think I should get hit in the face with a stick, but I do. It's part of the deal. It's part of the game. Right. And I want to be in the game. I don't want to be sitting on the sidelines. I want to be in the game. And sometimes I'm the one with the stick and sometimes someone else is the one with the stick, but it's okay. It's part of the deal. It's part of the game. So here are some questions that I think are helpful. What does this situation offer me? So when I think about the situation where I was really angry about something happening, or I think about the situation with my student being upset with me, or if I think about the situation with my friend and her son having Lyme disease, what does this situation offer me? What is the opportunity here? What am I being offered in terms of what can I learn? How can I use this to make me stronger? How can I use this situation? Now, some of you may be like, oh, come on already, right? But what is the alternative to looking at it? It has nothing to offer me. There's nothing good about this. There's no opportunity here. Then you're just stuck at the effect of it. And I have found that is not useful for me in my life anyway. Another great question is, how can I show up for this? How can I show up? I want to show up in my life in this situation. So, how can I show up when my son has a diagnosis? How can I show up when my account gets closed down and they won't let me access my bank account because they think I'm a fraud, even though I've been in business with them for 10 years, right? Just a little side note, the way that I showed up was not useful. Me scolding the bank employees about how their institutions, the safeguards are making me feel fell on deaf ears. And it wasn't useful. And my sense of self-importance and everyone should be, working around the clock to make sure this doesn't ever happen again to me because it's such an inconvenience was not useful. right? So if I was able to approach that situation more like, what does this offer me? And really asked myself, how do I want to show up? I would not have said, be sarcastic and defiant with the bank employee. That will definitely get you what you want. You know, I'm like slicing judgments at them and being upset with them about how they're running their bank. And, you know, they're just at work trying to have a good day. You know, they're not really concerned that I don't have access to my money. You know, they're trying to explain their policy and why it is the way it is. And it really is in place to protect me and everyone else at the bank. You know, that's kind of their day. And I'm, you know, with my self-importance, just really not showing up the way that I would have liked to show up, especially as I'm describing it to you now. Another question that I love to ask is, what feels most like love? What feels less like fear and more like love? Like, think about that if I would have asked myself that question before I called the bank. What feels most like love right now? And when I ask the question, I can consider it for myself. Like, was it loving for me to get on the phone with the bank people and express my dissatisfaction, you know, and to kind of vent that out? Did I serve myself there? Was that the way to get the result I wanted? You know, did that solve the problem? No, absolutely not. And it certainly didn't feel like love, right? It felt most like fear and arrogance, and you know, it didn't serve any end game at all. And it's so funny because the bank called me today and it's still blocked. They're still having issues with, you know, trying to figure out if, you know, we're running a drug cartel, I guess. I don't know, or some scam or whatever. I don't know what they're thinking, you know. But when they called today, I was in a totally different space. The guy was like, hey, you know, we really want to get this working for you, and we're really sorry this is such an inconvenience. And I just want to let you know that the reason this is in place is really because of this, this, and this. And I was like, no worries. It's all good. It's all fine. Right. I was just in such a better space that since I had time to process it and what was going on in my mind. So here's the thing that I want to share with you. You're going to get hit in the face with a stick. The zip line is going to shake. It doesn't mean something has gone wrong. It means that you're a human being on the planet. And this is what happens in life. And you get to decide how you want to show up for those things. You get to decide. You can't decide what happens to you, unfortunately, but you get to decide how you will respond, what you will think, how you will show up, and what you will take from that experience to use in your life to become the person that you want to be. And so as I leave you all today, I just want to say that, first of all, thank you for being there and listening. And I feel amazingly better after having talked to you. I feel like I've been talking to a good friend on the phone. But I just also want to share that I think everything in our life can be used for goodness. It can be used for love, right? My friend can show up for her son who has Lyme disease in the most deepest, profoundest, loving way. Maybe more than she could had he not had it, right? She can do what feels like love to her. She can fuel all of her actions with love. And she can, what I call I was talking to my master coaches this weekend, and I said, you got to be really careful with that mental hygiene. You know, you got to make sure that brain hygiene is up. You know, and you really are having to look at those thoughts and keeping it clean and doing all that preventative medicine on your brain to make sure those thoughts are really being managed and thought on purpose. So I want to recommend that to all of you, no matter what's going on in your life. And I know for some of you, you're getting repeatedly hit in the face with a stick. You can't maybe stop that from happening right now, but you can decide what you're going to make it mean and how you're going to react. And I want to suggest that reacting with love and compassion is available to you. It always is. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it and how you think about it. That's all for now, y'all. I look forward to talking to you all next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Life Coach School podcast. It would be incredibly awesome if you would take a moment to write a quick review on iTunes. For any questions, comments, or coaching issues you would like to hear on the show, please visit us at www.thelifecoachschool.com.